Hey, I'm Gory B Movie and I'm a horror addict, and today we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of 1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer. In 1996, Scream reinvigorated teen slashers with smart, horror-savvy characters and self-aware humor. It paved the way for a slew of similar films that followed in the late 1990s, including today's film, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Know What You Did Last Summer was also written by Kevin Williamson, but it's not just another Scream-inspired slasher. In fact, it was actually written before Scream, but Williamson had been unable to sell it. However, after the huge success of Scream, Columbia Pictures immediately bought the script. The film did great at the box office. Loads of horror fans, including myself, went to see this, but it got mixed reviews, inevitably drawing both positive and negative comparisons to Scream. I was in high school when I saw this, so maybe I was just at the right age to appreciate this film, but I loved it. Now 20 years have passed, and you might be wondering if I Know What You Did Last Summer is worth revisiting or seeing for the first time. Well, we'll get into that, but first I'm going to give you a rundown of the plot, and then we're going to get into the good, the bad, and the gory. Oh, and spoilers? There will be. I Know What You Did Last Summer is based on the 1973 novel by Lois Duncan. It's a loose adaptation, but the book and the movie have similar beginnings. Four friends, after a night of celebration, hit and presumably kill someone on their way home. They cover it up and vow to never speak of it again until a year later, one of the teens, Julie James, played in the movie by Jennifer Love Hewitt, gets a note saying,
I know what you did last summer, ooh.
From here, the book and the movie diverge in two very different directions. The book is more of a Nancy Drew style mystery, whereas the movie is a slasher flick with a body count. For this reason, Duncan thought the film was a poor adaptation of her novel. She hated the violence in the movie, particularly since her own 18-year-old daughter was murdered in 1989. And the fisherman killer in the movie wasn't in the novel. He was inspired by the urban legend, The Hook.
They get back to the girl's house, and they find the lunatic's bloody hook in the car door.
He wears a dark slicker and wields a gaff hook. He toys with Julie and her friends for most of the film, scaring them and leaving messages. The teens can't go to the cops without the truth of their murder coming out, so they set out to find out who the killer is on their own. I Know What You Did Last Summer is a fun, well-paced movie with a likable cast, which is impressive since we watch these kids hit a guy with their car and dump his body in the ocean, even after they find out that he's not really dead. Julie is the moral compass of the group, and as a final girl, she delivers. In the book, Julie gets knocked out in the final fight, and it's up to Ray to save her, but in the movie, she kicks some fisherman ass. Jennifer Love Hewitt had just come off of filming House Arrest with horror queen Jamie Lee Curtis, so maybe she picked up a few pointers. In fact, Hewitt said that Curtis was filming nearby, so she stopped by the set on her first day to wish her luck and came by every day after that to give her a hug. Aww. Though I gotta say, Ryan Phillippe, who was recently in Wish Upon, gives the strongest performance. He plays the rich jock guy Barry, and yeah, he's a dick, but he's a dick with layers. You know, like one of those uncircumcised ones. Phillippe brings incredible energy to the role and steals every scene that he's in.
Yo, Chumbig, take a hike.
There's also Sarah Michelle Gellar, star of my favorite show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in her first scary movie. After this, she went on to have roles in Scream 2, The Grudge, The Return, and the Scooby-Doo films. She's fantastic. On paper, her character Helen is shallow and underdeveloped, but Gellar's performance makes her charming and funny.
Don't you think we should have some sort of a plan? Joe Lansbury always had a plan.
She's a character we root for, especially in that chase scene through the department store. The entire scene is thrilling and action-packed. Gellar is one hell of a scream queen, though her death always frustrates me. She was almost there! What the hell did that fisherman do? Teleport? A lot of credit for why the characters are so likable goes to Kevin Williamson. The man knows how to write dialogue. There are some really funny lines, and I love all of the pop culture references.
Jodie Foster tried this and a skin-ripping serial killer answered the door.
It's a fun slasher, but it's also a great mystery with loads of twists and turns. And the locations and cinematography really enhance the urban legend feel of the film. That opening shot of the ocean is gorgeous, and the way way it leads us to David Egan is impressive. There is also a neat silhouetted chase scene that reminded me a bit of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and another of the killer's hook reflected in Elsa's glasses that looked awesome. And of course, if you were a teenager in the 90s, there's loads of nostalgia goodness for you here. You've got overalls, Y necklaces, cordless phones, old laptops, not to mention no cell phones or GPS, so there's none of that no signal bullshit. There's also a killer rock soundtrack featuring L7, Korn, Toad the Wet Sprocket, The Offspring, Soul Asylum, Typo Negative, and I love that Kula Shaker song Hush. This is a soundtrack I listened to a lot when I was a teenager and that I still listen to today, so I highly recommend it. As much as I enjoy the cast and characters, there are a few weak links, starting with Freddie Prinze Jr. as Ray. He gives a fairly wooden performance overall, and he never convincingly looks scared.
Look, he's after me too. I got a letter.
I didn't dislike his character, but he doesn't add anything to the movie. It seems like he's just there to be a red herring and deliver some cheesy romantic subplot bullshit.
No one gets me the way you do.
I understand your pain.
And yeah, Hewitt isn't exempt from this either. She does the reading out loud thing, that always drives me nuts. And then there's her twirling around and shouting scene that surely would have been memed if it was made today.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for? Do it!
There are also loads of cliche characters like Julie's sassy black roommate and Helen's mean girl older sister. And I like Helen and Barry, but damn, these kids are douchebags. They're the ones that dump the body, and when they see that the guy is still alive, they're more worried about getting Helen's crown than saving the guy. Later, Barry mistakenly jumps an old man, and it looks like he's given the poor guy a heart attack, but instead of apologizing or helping the guy, he's too busy looking for the fisherman. There are also a couple of scenes that are too dumb to be forgiven, even by 90s horror standards. First, the trunk scene. Julie finds Max dead in her trunk with crabs and crayfish all over him. Notice his neck looks fine. Funny, since he was hooked through it. Anyhow, Julie runs inside to get Helen and Ray and show them the body. They return not 5 minutes later, and miraculously, there's no body, no crustaceans, and the trunk looks clean and vacuumed. I call bullshit. The killer would have had to have another car nearby to load the body, but there's none nearby, and even if there had been and he sped away, Julie would have heard him. There's also no way he could have cleaned that so well in such little time. I guess it's like when he killed Helen. He must have teleported with a flippin' car or TARDIS, loaded up the body and all the sea critters, whipped out a handheld dustbuster, given it a good sprucing, and then teleported away. What an asshat. Then there's the bullshit ending. Julie is back at college after killing the fisherman. Well, presumably. The cops found Ben Willis's hand, but not his body. She gets a letter, but it's just an invite to a party. So she goes to take a shower. The shower room is inexplicably filled with steam, and she sees "I still know" written in the condensation. Ben Willis crashes through the glass, and we cut to black. What the fuck was that? There's a sequel, so we know he didn't kill Julie, so what, was it all a dream? You're gonna end on a lame dream jump scare? Screw you, movie. And it doesn't even make sense. We can clearly see that not only does the killer not have his hook, but he has two hands. Ben Willis only has one, and Julie knows that. I don't know, maybe it is real. Maybe it's that old man that Barry jumped earlier, come to get his revenge by scaring the shit out of her and giving her a good honka honka. That'll show her. There are 5 kills in this movie, and they're all fairly similar. The best is the first one when Max gets hooked in the throat. Later, a cop also gets hooked in the throat, but it's not nearly as brutal. The camera cuts away during the other 3 kills, but it looks like Willis just stabbed them with his hook repeatedly. First with Barry, then Elsa, and finally Helen. And I'm not counting David Egan, who Willis kills before the events of the film, or Willis himself, since we know that he lives to fish another day. Also, for a slasher film, this is blood light. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which also used death by hook, the film leaves much to our imagination. That worked well in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I think I Know What You Did Last Summer should have earned its R rating and shown us the kills. They do, however, show us dead turkeys and fish, and the dead bodies of Helen and Barry turn up at the end of the film, but they look like mannequins and are not at all scary. I will say that I love the look of the fisherman. It's simple, yet effective. This is also a very thrilling and suspenseful film. The scene where they hit Ben Willis is great, also Barry being stalked at the gym, and the chase at the department store that I mentioned. There are loads of jump scares, but most of them are fake outs, so I thought they were pretty cheap, but at least one of these is sure to get you. And I'll admit, I was creeped out by the scene where Willis cuts off Helen's hair. Just the thought of him hiding in her closet and sneaking out in the dark, then waking up and knowing that a stranger touched you? Ugh. I wish they would have shown more of that. That could have been terrifying. As for the nudity, well, this is a 90s slasher, so you don't see much, but there is loads of cleavage and belly buttons if that's your thing. So, should you see it? This is a fun, well-paced slasher with lots of rewatch value, so I'm gonna say you should own it. Newer audiences may not appreciate this as much as those of us who grew up in the 90s, but I hear they're remaking it with Mike Flanagan, so I guess if you don't like this film, you could hold out for the reboot. Me, I'm happy with the 1997 version, and if you like similar films like Scream and Urban Legend, I think you'll enjoy it as well. But I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this film, how you feel about the possibility of a remake, and if you would like to see me review the sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Thanks for watching. Cut!